Hello, everybody. My name is Gary Fowler, and it's great to be here for another edition of GSD Presents Silicon Valley AI and Tech. My name is Gary Fowler, and I'm your host. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've done 17 companies, been involved in 2 unicorns, original management team of Click Software, which was sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion, and also Yva.ai, an AI HR tech company that I co-founded with Dr. David Yang. Love artificial intelligence and quantum computing and cybersecurity, of course, with all the challenges we have today around us. I'm the CEO, president, and co-founder of GSD Get Shit Done Venture Studios, a premier AI and quantum venture studio located in Silicon Valley, because we believe that intellectual capacity is evenly spread around the world, but the opportunities aren't. And with that, I'd like to introduce my incredible guest. He is the wizard of everything. I've heard him talk about AI. I've heard him talk about blockchain. I've heard him talk about supply chain, robotics, you name it. Kyle Ellicott knows it. He's incredible. He's a founder. He's an investor. He's a keynote speaker. He lived in China. He's in Silicon Valley. I mean, you name it. Kyle's got it. He came from Michigan, moved to the Valley with a dream, and I'd like to bring him on the show today because we're going to talk about blockchain. Hi, Kyle.
Hi, Gary. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Wonderful. I got to tell you that. First off, thank you for that introduction. Absolutely wonderful. But also your intro video, I am so energized and hyped up watching that pre-show. You and the team did a great job. Let's talk. This is fun.
Yeah. No, it's so my partner Derek put it together, and we wanted to energize and get people excited because getting it's like the trailer. You want to make sure you got the right piece going into the movie, right? So here we are.
Absolutely. Get shit done ventures there. I mean, that is getting it done.
So Kyle, tell me a little bit about it. So how do you go? So you did you went to school in Michigan, you studied computer science. Then you went to China. You spent time in China. How do you make that leap? And because we from a big city in Michigan. How big was the city?
I was not a very, very small city, but I grew up not far from the University of Michigan as well. So I'm very fortunate to be around not only the University of Michigan, but also Eastern Michigan University, where I also went, and a number of other colleges and universities, small and large, around as well. So from a very young age, had access to these great minds and educators that introduced technology to me very early on, and then I got to live through the research and the development and the opportunities that they provided as well. And I've talked to you a little bit about some of the internships that I got to do in college, where when I was able to get excited about these new technologies, whether it was in cybersecurity or it was in just information technology as a whole, to networking, to then later things like those that we're talking about today. And this at that time was kind of the Web 2.0 movement. So looking at the early days of applications or web apps, and then APIs and social media, the universities that I was able to be around so much offered these opportunities, whether it was through internships or it was just kind of being around the individuals who knew the best and taught it.
So, okay, but how did you go to China? Now,
that journey.
Eastern Michigan University, and but what happened? Did one day you wake up and say, "Listen, I think China's the place I want to go. I'm just going to get on a plane and go there"?
It's a great question. I'm sure at some point in my life I did have that before I went there, but I will give a shameless shout out to my alma mater, Eastern Michigan, who has these amazing programs in Southeast Asia and throughout Southeast Asia, working with students in the area and actually helping to provide these dual degrees in areas of technology and others as well. So shameless promotion. Now, back to my story. So after graduating from university, I started, a few of my very first companies, and I joined that entrepreneurial journey that we have both been a part of for so long in our careers. And during that time, as I left Michigan and moved to the West Coast, had the opportunity to see this new path from Web 2.0 into the early, call it Web 3 movement, which we'll talk more about. And that was kind of Web 2.5. And that was when mobile was starting to get a little bit stagnant, and this world of connected devices, or the Internet of Things, was starting to emerge. And looking at that along with these new emerging technologies like blockchain, like artificial intelligence, and even quantum in its earliest days, and how those technologies were going to be impacting different industries. And through that, happened to start a startup accelerator along with a much broader company. And there we expanded that company into Southeast Asia. And I got to take my first trip, I think, in 2015. Wild as how long it's been. And I got to see, what life and also the industry was like in Asia. And I started off in Hong Kong. I talk about this in my TED Talk. It's just the moment, and true to form, the moment I landed the first time ever in Asia, in Hong Kong, my mind was just blown away. And just seeing this connected world that we were just imagining in some cases in the United States and in Europe, but it was actually living and thriving there, right? Where everything was handled with a simple plastic card, now fully digital, all into a mobile app, for instance, and then made that entrance into mainland China and then the rest of Southeast Asia as well, working with companies and the entire startup ecosystem.
Wow, and how long did you live there?
Yeah, so I was on the ground for about, I think, 3 years in total, back and forth, and having the chance to spend a lot of time in Hong Kong and then Shenzhen, so southeast of mainland China as well, and got to see the regions up through what is now called the Greater Bay Area, and then all the way up through towards Beijing as well. And it was fun when I first got there. The Hong Kong startup ecosystem was very small and very early days, and now is thriving in many cases. And same within Shenzhen. And that's when there was an initiative that was put together called the Greater Bay Area, and that was bringing together about 11 different
The Greater Bay Area?
Yes. So here's why. There's a lot of reasons, but here's the good reason I'll put out there is there's 11 regions up and around the Pearl River Delta. And in those 11 regions, they combined forces to also have different areas of focus, right? From manufacturing to supply chain to logistics to aerospace to information technology to blockchain and to gaming, entertainment, hospitality, you name it. And these 11 provinces combined offered access within 1 hour of transportation. So by train, car, boat, or plane, you could access almost 70 million people. That's like bringing New York City, Los Angeles, a little bit of Las Vegas, and San Francisco all in one region within an hour of each other. And that has huge impact as well. And so there was a lot of financial commitments towards the region. There was a lot of industry commitment towards the region. And it was put together to then work in tandem with the Bay Area, or as we refer to it as Silicon Valley here, and kind of bridge those two together. And that was a lot of my efforts while I was there, is kind of helping bring a bridge to those two regions and also to the greater world as we continue to talk about, whether it was Europe or Latin America or otherwise.
So how was it? How is it to do business there, Kyle?
Yeah, for me, it was actually an exciting experience. And going back to my early days at university, I wanted to study international business, and my path took me differently. And then a few years later, I was thrown into international business. So I got a great degree in it, but it was very different from the business I had traditionally done in the United States and then in Europe as well. And so there were a lot of cultural differences and customs that I had to learn and adapt to, which at the end of the day, I think it really just widened my entire perspective on business and investing, and even as a founder overall, and for the better. So a lot of learnings. It was a lot of kind of start go and learn as you go. A lot of A/B testing, if you will, but it was a very unique experience that I learned a lot from. And the other thing I'll add on to that is what I also picked up is in the United States, we have a pretty, I would say, level set way of doing business, right? It's very even keeled throughout all 50 states and sometimes elsewhere as well. What I learned in my time in Asia is that each country, and even within that country, can have different ways of doing business and customs and things that you need to, or practices you need to be aware of as well. And so that was a great education. It was a great experience, and a lot of growth that happened in that time. So, doing business in Hong Kong may have been different of doing business in Singapore to Vietnam to then South Korea to Japan and Taiwan to all the way down to we'll even throw Australia into that mix as well, even though it's a far extension of Asia.
Wow, that's interesting. So how was it? How much different? So if you're in Hong Kong versus China, what are the differences? How does it work? I mean, is it different mental set because of the UK, the British Empire being there, or is it that different?
There was some differences in terms of if we go to the governmental level, right, and how certain schemes or incentive programs were set up and put in place. That also transitioned into venture and financial markets, that transitioned into entrepreneurship mindset as well, and speed was incredible. So Hong Kong, there was a certain speed and pace because it's a tight, dense city, very similar to that of New York. And so you have that kind of go, go, go mentality. And when I went to Shenzhen for the first time, at first when you enter, you see massive buildings and development and growth and excitement. And then you go into the entrepreneurial part of the ecosystem, that startup ecosystem. And oh my goodness, in 2015, 2016, I mean, this was just starting and it was exciting and fast. And then when blockchain became a part of that story and narrative, I mean, it just 10x'd. And so the pace was incredibly fast. I mean, we think the Valley is fast-paced. Asia brought a whole new meaning to high-paced, fast-paced environments for me as well. But also just from a custom standpoint, in the United States, we have a very traditional way of meeting each other and wanting to do a deal and wanting to do business and go. Very short, sweet. Let's see what happens. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. In Asia, and I also noticed this same parallel in Europe as well, is there's a lot of relationship development that goes into making a business, a partnership, or even a joint venture, as it's referred to a lot of times there, happen. It doesn't just happen overnight as well. And that's a little bit of both on the ground business perspective. That's a little bit of kind of the new and the old guard, I would say, as well. So there's the old guard being the very established businesses that have been there for a number of years and those in those careers. And then there is the new guard, which is that entrepreneurial fast pace, whether it's those that have been educated outside of the region and come back, or have now started new businesses and they're in these thriving industries that you and I talk about, right? Whether it's artificial intelligence, it's new applications, it's blockchain, it's in that fast-paced startup environment as well. And those companies and those entrepreneurs are fast, and let's see what happens. Let's break things. Let's fix them, and let's go.
Ah, interesting. So let's talk about blockchain. What's going on from your perspective? Where are we with blockchain? I mean, we come out, it was associated with cryptocurrencies. Now you have banks talking about blockchain. You've got health, but is it real? I mean, are they really implementing it, or is it just they're trying to satisfy their board and their shareholders? Where is it today?
It's a great question and a very debated one at that. So let's take a step back. So in 2008, right, we had the Bitcoin white paper put out into the world by Satoshi in that group or individual. And a few weeks later, we had the first. So this is the end of 2008. Pardon me. The white paper was released about 2 weeks later, in the beginning of January 2009. The first block on the Bitcoin network was mined. So the Genesis block happened. And it's important to know those dates, because fast forward to where we are now in 2021, it's only 12, 13 years. We're not that far into this cycle of a new technology and a new paradigm that's been introduced into this world. But in that just over a decade's time, we've seen a massive amount of development in some arguments than we've seen ever to date, right? So here in the information age that we live in this industrial 4.0 movement that we have right now, this pace of the last 12 plus years has accelerated again more than we've seen in other industries as well. And so in that, after that 2009 Genesis block, we saw kind of early tests and very small groups focusing on the technology and what it could be. And come 2014, we see the first non-fungible token created. 2015, we have Ethereum launched publicly to the world. Then all of a sudden, things started to pick up. 2017, 2018, 2019, we have the ICO boom. So the initial coin offering boom, for those who may not be aware, saw a lot of protocols and blockchains launched, a lot of networks, a lot of promises, a lot of applications, a lot of just, this is all happening really fast. Well, so 2019 to 2020, we saw kind of the aftershocks of that. And a lot of that aftershock was some of what you just mentioned of, is this real? Is this not? What are the real use cases? Where are people really using this? But more importantly, the boardrooms were starting to pay attention. The executives were starting to figure out, is this something we need to be concerned and or experienced in? Concerned for the future of their business, for their products, their customers, but experienced in to make sure that it gets integrated, if or fully, and I'll come back to that in a second, into their businesses and their applications. And so in that transitional time period, 19 to 20, so 2019 to 2020, we saw a lot of enterprises starting to touch and interact, try use cases, do different pilots of where this may be, right? We saw the early days of this technology integrated into mobility. So into the automotive industry, we saw it in the early days of retail, agriculture, huge throughout supply chain and logistics, more in that enterprise bucket, if you will. While the infrastructure that I spent a lot of time looking at, the infrastructure started to improve. Found holes, things got repaired, we found gap areas, we found areas that needed to be improved. Come full circle into 2020 as we all go into this, surge of accelerated digitization. It was no longer just a conversation. Blockchain and digital assets and the entire landscape that is both of those were now a forced function of the conversation, and more importantly, decentralization. And that came into the room of, do we or how? So do we need decentralization, and how will our business, our applications, our products leverage decentralization in some way? Will it be in storage? Will it be in compute? Will it be blockchain native? Will it be, through security, digital identity, all of these pieces? Now, how does that start to fit? Come full circle to where we are now, right? So at the end of 2020 into 2021, as we come to the second half of this year, blockchain is a part of the conversation. Digital assets are a part of that conversation. Decentralized applications, or dApps, is now the future of where applications are going, and that plays a role into Web 3.0 and the future of the web that we're building. Non-fungible tokens, NFTs. This, what we've seen in the last year.
Kyle, got a question for him. These non-fungible tokens, right?
Yeah.
What's the deal? I mean,
oh my gosh.
I've seen, I actually had somebody present this to me.
Yeah.
They had done a non-fungible token. Nobody that we know, by the way, but non-fungible token. They just took a picture and they had a celebrity put some dots on it and another little thing, and they sold it for $500,000. Now, how in the world? I don't know about you, but just me, I don't understand. Are we in a Dutch tulip phenomenon with some of these I get it when you're talking about some things that really truly have value. But what about some of this other stuff? Is there too much hype behind these non-fungible tokens, or what's the deal?
It's a very good question. It's kind of why I wanted to paint that picture of, this is only about 12, 13 years into the technology that's empowering some of these things, even decentralized finance, right? And these are key terms that are being thrown out there. So I'm trying to use them as much as possible for the audience tuning in. But we've only just begun some of these transitions. And when we look at that 2017, 2019 boom for blockchain and ICOs, we kind of went through a shortened version of that with non-fungible tokens, where We saw about 69 million dollars in transactions in 2019, 250 million dollars transacted in 2020, and then here we are mid-year 2021, and we're seeing over $3.5 billion transacted all around non-fungible tokens. So this is not a fad. This is movement, because these are also progressive numbers. A good stat to put a pin in for a second is OpenSea, one of the biggest and largest marketplaces that deals with non-fungible tokens. Right now, in August, so we're midway through the month, they, I think, have seen almost $1 billion, and I'll fact check this afterwards, but almost $1 billion in transaction volume in this month alone. In overnight, they saw $250 million transacted overnight.
Wow, that's amazing.
We're just coming around to the second half. But to answer your question, non-fungible tokens in the past, we'll give it the past year, have been in a trial period of what is and what could be. A lot of the initial takeoff was around moments, collectibles, and a little bit of nostalgia, right? We had NBA Top Shot.
I get that because people want to buy, and that's, this is pretty cool stuff. But what about some of these other things? Like somebody makes up a drawing and sells it and, gets $250,000 for something. Right. How can it be? How does it work anyhow, Kyle? Is it like, do they, and I'm sure that my audience wants to hear this too. It's like, okay, so how does something that makes no sense, a piece of paper, right, get to the point where it's worth $250,000?
It's a great question. So a little bit of supply and demand, a little bit of just general, value is kind of an eye in the beholder, and also a little bit of store of the value, a little bit of all of this. But what we just saw, I still don't believe NFTs are a fad, and I'll come back to why I think that in a moment. But back to your point around the art, we've seen a lot of tested use cases, and some of those have been focused around the art industry. And we won't speculate as to what is or what isn't art. I think that's, up to everyone's opinion. But there have been some pieces that, are very simple and very complex as well. And a lot of that goes.
Oh, that's saying it nicely.
Art's in the eye of the beholder. I think we both consider art. Go ahead.
I saw, this is a true story.
Yeah.
There was an experiment done. I don't know if you heard about this, but they took a chimpanzee and they gave a chimpanzee art brushes and stuff and stuck in his cage or her cage. I don't know if it was a female or male. And the chimpanzee started to paint, and somebody put it up, and they had this, this is an abstract piece. And they didn't name, they put Coco or whatever as the artist. Right. And the thing started, they had like the party and, et cetera, and everyone went through the roof. So it's not just with these NFTs. And like people are like, they created a whole backstory around this is an unknown artist, that goes, that's very in stealth mode, but it's creating incredible pieces. And then they created a collection around it. And then finally they let it out of the bag. But it's like, it's like serious. It's like, it's interesting, and that's on the real side where you're doing an art rally, but non-fungible tokens,
Well, so let's separate this. This is a very good question. Let's separate the part of non-fungible tokens in the conversation. So on NFTs, there's multiples, but there's the art and collectibles piece.
Right.
There's the moments, there's the experiences, there is the content, and then there's the to be announced. So on art, a lot of this, yes, the initial movement was focused around digital art, right? Being able to bring something like the piece you mentioned or otherwise into the digital native world that we all live, these digital lifestyles, and be able to sell it. Now, you take that to a marketplace, buy, sell. Now, what's unique about and why some of these pieces are also going for so high is that they're in auctions. So it's not just, hey, this is $1 only, but they have auctions tied to them. And then there's secondary marketplaces where your beautiful stick figure drawing that you draw for me to purchase for $1, I decide to sell it for $2. And then someone buys it for $3. And then someone buys it for $10. Continues on. So There's a little bit of that. There's a little bit of just the general.
Serial in that sense, or is it in parallel? Do multiple people come in at this? I have not done it. I have not purchased an NFT.
No, it's
Is
a good
it done in
question.
parallel or serial?
So it's done in a series. So usually it's we have an auction for one, and it buy sell on a time limit, right? Or auction, excuse me, yeah, just like eBay auctions, if you will, as well. And so there have been those types, and we have Sotheby's and Christie's, two of the largest art auction houses that have poured not only time and resources, but their entire future digital strategy into non-fungible tokens and how to blend the two worlds, which leads into the second piece of the art. And that is that in some cases, when you buy a piece of art or have it traditionally, it gets stored, right, as a store of value, maybe stored in a warehouse. You may not actually have it on display, but you do want to display it. You don't want to risk something happen to it. So you need a digital component. That's where the NFT has come into play in some cases, and it's tied in and it shows proof of ownership. So there's all this data that's attached to it, right? So proof of authenticity to ownership to then transfer of ownership, which creates, the whole historical
in a fractional
record
way, right? In a fractional way.
Right. And an immutable way. So if you sell me a piece of art as an NFT, so we'll use the digital version, for example, it can show that transfer, you to me. There's also the smart contract that can be introduced into it, where when you transfer it to me as ownership, that then I release the funds to you, right? So an if then this, right? That's where things
but then what happens, Kyle, here's the deal. Let's say you have a Picasso and you do an NFT in the Picasso. You want to really sell it sometime. You want to sell the piece. What do you sell? Is the NFT separate from the piece, or are they one and the same?
So this is a great question. They actually right now and are kind of all of the above. They're separate and they're together. So they're separate in that, it may be a very unique piece. And again, there's the digital representation, the physical representation that can sell for in parallel for different amounts. And that's kind of the world that we're starting to blend and move into, living these digital and lifestyles that we have. But what's very cool is that in other cases, they're tied together. And so that ownership goes with, and we've seen this on a few NFT non-fungible token launches recently, where there was a great release done, and I forgot the blockchain name. I apologize. I'll find it and I'll give it to you, Gary, after the show. But they did a series of physical goods with a digital NFT attached to it. So you bought the physical good, but the NFT could be bought and sold and transfer ownership digitally through this. And whoever owns it at the time actually owns the physical portion as well. And they had custom made baseball bats that they did, and also digital signatures. This is all for sports fans. And with that, you got a non-fungible token that represented the physical good, and you could hold on to both.
I love
but
that.
Even
That's great.
Here's a better one. So
you get the replica and you get the real thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. And here's even a cooler. This ties into the future of again, testing use cases and where we're going to go. There's a wonderful artist out there, Fuchsilicious, and he did a drop as an NFT. It was a non-fungible token. It was a digital version of a art piece sneaker that he designed. And I think the concept was you bought this, we'll just say for X dollars. And with that, you got a physical limited edition custom sneaker that matched the artwork, right? So only, we'll say 100 people could own that physical sneaker, and then the digital version could be traded and sold. Well, what he didn't say, or what they didn't say, pardon me, is that once you purchase this, it actually had a license attached to it that for the next 10 years, the owner of the digital, the non-fungible token, would have the exclusive right to buy a limited edition sneaker every year for the next 10 years.
Required to buy it or opportunity to buy it?
Opportunity to buy it.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. And that's what we're kind of starting to see this transition of, is now we're getting into experiences where you'll buy a ticket to an event, and that ticket, will be a mobile ticket that lives on your phone, but it will also be acting as a non-fungible token, so that when you walk into the venue, you receive something, that you receive an actual
It's almost
moments.
like a loyalty token,
Exactly.
right? I mean, it becomes like a loyalty token. But
And loyalty 2.0.
Doesn't that cross the line between NFT and loyalty? I mean, because now we're hearing from the other side, tokenization and engagement and those kind of things. Is it starting to blur, the line blurring?
So it sounds like it, but it's actually the evolution. So, right, a fungible token is that can be fractionized. So we'll use Bitcoin as an example, right? Bitcoin can be bought as one Bitcoin always equals one Bitcoin. It can also be fractionized. Many decimal points of a Bitcoin can be purchased. A non-fungible token, that is actually, it's non-fungible. So one token, one non-NFT may not equal the same of an identical NFT, right? Even for the event example, for instance, they may differ in value as well. And then fractional ownership plays into that. So a loyalty program may be more appropriate to have, the American Airlines coin. And the American Airlines coins, which is what the loyalty program is, allows you to redeem those coins or those tokens for something. Well, the NFT ties an experience. It ties the contract, the if then this, to it and gives you more as well. And you can have another example. When you do join a loyalty program, you receive a membership card.
Yeah, like in Delta Airlines. So
right.
You get the membership card, you get the loyalty. And how would it work then, Kyle? Where would the NFT come in?
Yeah, so the NFT can actually be your loyalty card. And that holds all the data about you, the metadata. That holds all of the activity that you do, but maybe you want to sell that. Maybe you don't want to be an American Airlines customer anymore. You actually want to transfer that from me to you. Well, I can sell that on a marketplace. You can purchase it from me, and now my membership transfers to you. You now become a customer. You now assume all of my points.
So you could transfer. Well, you could transfer the points, but you wouldn't transfer yourself. You could. How would you do? You know what I mean? Because of all the.
Yeah. So there's a few companies out there that are doing this around membership, where if you purchase the NFT that they're selling, you actually receive membership, a monthly subscription to their service. So the company is called Rad Live out there as well. And so when you purchase their NFT, you receive membership into their monthly subscription. And instead of paying the $5 a month, you now own on life membership into their service. And if I sell it to you, I now lose membership. You gain membership. You become a new customer.
I got it. That's interesting. But on the loyalty points, let's go back to the airlines. Yeah. So let's talk. I got it in the tokens, and here's the other thing. There's a value for each person that has the token of what level of membership you have. For instance, if you have a platinum membership or gold or silver, whatever it is, you've got value to your membership that's a little bit different because you've achieved certain buckets. And so you as a customer are worth a lot more. You could be have more money, you could just travel more, etc. Then the value of yourself, because you become, it's you, right? It's not because you're the one that's creating the value. How does that work?
So we'll use that as a use case. There is an example, because that's actually something that you could further go into the future around NFTs. And you could say, hey, I as an individual travel, 1 million miles a year. Would you like to invest in me to help you earn rewards or a piece and a fraction of my miles? Right. And you can tokenize yourself, which we're starting to see more of around personal and social tokens, those individuals who want to tokenize themselves. This is a part of the broader transition of the creators economy that we've spoken about as well. So I can create the Kyle token, and as owners of the Kyle token, you receive a monthly reward. And of that monthly reward is a fraction, so kind of like a dividend, a fraction of my airline miles that I distribute out. I already have reached the top status, so I want to give the rest away.
Yeah.
And I can do that. So this is a use case just for audience's purposes. I don't think that exists right now. This is just an example that could be done. And there are individuals who have tokenized themselves. There's an awesome gentleman out there named Alex. So Alex has tokenized himself. We're seeing more athletes and celebrities.
Wait, tokenized himself? And what does that mean?
It's a good question. So as an individual, you create a token that represents you and your time, your product, or your service. So I may create, we'll use me as the example. I create the Kyle token. And with that, you have access for the next year as a token holder. You purchased it for $1. It will go hopefully up in value and not down. But based on that, I'm only selling 100. And those 100 token holders will have the chance to receive future earnings of mine. We'll have access to exclusive content. And also we'll be able to book, depending on the amount of tokens you hold, in maybe book one-on-one Zoom sessions with me, for instance, at a discounted or a free rate. And in the future, I may allow the token holders to decide what I say or do. So for instance, we did a great use case with
what you say or do.
Yeah. So here's a cool use case. So outstanding individuals who have done some cool stuff in this space right now. And I'll call out a friend and also another great person who's done a lot in this business. So the founder of Galaxy is Spencer Dinwiddie. So he tokenized his NBA contract. Mm-hmm. And with that, he created a company called Galaxy to help others tokenize themselves and what they want to do in their products and services. And the idea, and one of the things he talks about is, being able to vote and help decide, his token holders, his community holders, decide what shoe he may wear in a game, for instance. And so bringing that to myself, I may empower my token holders to decide, do I, for instance, take this job versus another? Do I wear a blue shirt?
What do they get out of it? What do they get out of it, Kyle? So what's in it for them?
Yeah. So in some cases, it's, just being a part of
dividend on Kyle. Is there a dividend when you take that job and it's a little bit higher paying? Do you pay a dividend back and say, listen,
the possibilities are endless. I mean, we're talking about what's happening.
I mean, that's unbelievable. You don't control your own destiny anymore if you do that.
So here's the thing. We're talking about, in all seriousness, the possibilities are endless right now because this is all new. We're trying this, and with the power of smart contracts that play a role into these things we're talking about, personal or social tokens, non-fungible tokens, et cetera, NFTs. This is all still being put out there, but smart contracts plays a huge role in that. And yes, you may give up as an individual some of those decision makings, but you may want to help empower or reward those fans, those communities, those that support you as well. And so for instance, Gary, let's say you're one of my biggest shareholders in the Kyle token. You own 51 of them. And you have not only supported me financially as a token holder, but you've also given this guidance through the one-on-one sessions you've had with me to be the next leader in artificial intelligence. And for that, we did agree and we vote as a community that Gary, who helped support me, gets a reward. It helps guide me in that direction, will support me, and will also get a dividend in future returns. That's something that can be done with smart contracts. That's why they're so cool and powerful.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. Yeah. Kyle, what happens? So you go down through it. Now let's talk about the legality. How do I turn that into cash? Right?
Yeah.
Where are we? Because I know there are a lot of regulations today because I've worked through a number of those, but how do we take it to cash? And what, because now that token represents something, right? Monetarily, you would think. How do we turn it into cash?
It's a great question. First, I am not a lawyer. Second, I am not an accountant. Third, this is not financial advice. All right, we got all those disclosures out there. So how do you do it?
Same here.
Yeah, same with Gary. But nonetheless, let's talk about it because we do, and this is something people should be aware of. So there's a few different ways, and it's just also, for me, one of the areas of opportunity. If you're building or thinking about building in the industry of blockchain, on and off ramps. This is something that's so needed and will continue to be needed for the industry going forward. So right now, for those individual token holders of the Kyle token, for instance, our example, our fake token, if you will, just for today's purposes, right now, if it was traded on a listed exchange, someone like Coinbase, for instance, a notable name out there in the space, you could buy, sell, trade and there would be liquidity to it, right? Just like you would a stock, for instance. In other cases, you may have to do it within an enclosed environment. So there are tokens and protocols out there that have existed to help create these, or to create liquidity pools. So to liquidity providers to be able to do that. And then others, there are exchanges. So you can exchange a Kyle token for a Gary token, and a Gary token is traded publicly, or a Kyle token for a non-fungible token, and a non-fungible token that you may want to see. The other thing we haven't talked about around NFTs is intellectual property and IP, and how this is actually empowering the intellectual property and patent markets, where traditionally IP and patents have been very paper-based, very slow process, in some cases very zero value returned. Now you and I and others that are listening can create patents or IP that we can have a non-fungible token that represents them, take those into a marketplace and see if someone's willing to pay, and create in that a smart contract that allows us to continue to get reoccurring revenue.
I'll tell you what, Kyle, this is like the beginning of changing everything, right? I mean,
it is.
Look at the digital economy. We talk about tokens. I mean, I just had a conversation about with someone. There's a Tempest network that's building the loyalty/engagement token, and you start looking at, how our lives are. I remember like 5 years ago, a friend of mine from Silicon Valley, very, very successful businessman, told me, he said, Gary, we're going to be tokenizing ourselves. We're going to tokenize ourselves. And he said, our lives are going to be looked at the value of the kind of things that you do and what you bring to the table is going to start to be tokenized. I remember when he said it, I said, I don't know where you're coming from. I thought it was like doing some philosophical exercise with me, to be honest. And lo and behold, here we are. I mean, it's happening. We're in the threshold of something very interesting. How does this work in some place in other countries? Let's talk about our other continents. What about Africa? I mean, you talk about, is this just a, U.S., Europe, part of Asia thing, or is this really what do you see in terms of spreading around the world?
Yeah, so this is one of the most exciting parts of blockchain in the entire world of decentralization is it brings these opportunities to everybody. Nobody is counted out, everybody is counted in. And so everywhere we're starting to see this, and we're seeing individuals from the average day person all the way up to, again, those big names and celebrities, to brands, to some of the largest companies in the world that are entering into this entire industry. And when it comes to the tokenization of themselves or their communities, which is something to be mindful of, their content, their intellectual property, we're seeing this on many levels. We're very, very, very early days. I want to add that. We're in very early days of this process, but think about it. I mean, as individuals, we've always been finding ways to value ourselves and our time in different respects. And now we're just creating a new medium of exchange for that, and one that can grow bigger and stronger, and if anything, more empowering to each of us as well. So, to your question about, is this just a thing in the US or in Europe or in Asia? No, this is everywhere. And I expect that to grow as well. And think about content. I mean, you've got great companies out there helping to monetize content, right? Newsletters to articles to music to short little videos that are out there. I mean, this is the beginning. We are very much in early days. So a lot of what we're talking about to the audience, I mean, this is very exciting, but some of it's in its early infancy, and you got to do your own research and play and test and try all this stuff. But we are definitely in the beginning of this huge shift in our lives as individuals, both how we live physically and digitally, as we've talked about that transition of our physical to digital lives, and the idea of metaverses and all this stuff that we're going to be living more digitally than we ever have been, which is then going to help us to, as you said, tokenize ourselves and find value or new value in what we do and how we do. Look at play to earn. This is a great business model, a great use case. Axie Infinity, a non-fungible token and also blockchain-based game in the Philippines, has created this entire business model that's growing globally called play to earn. And the idea that as you play this game, you earn not just rewards in game as we've traditionally seen in gaming and entertainment, but you can actually earn a version of fiat or a token that you can exchange for fiat.
Now,
This is Gary, but
is
Gary,
that legal in a lot of countries, though, Kyle? Because you've now changed the game, right?
Yes. So let me finish. This is so powerful that there are people within the Philippines. There's a great documentary that Axie Infinity and their founders, along with Delphi Insights, put together on YouTube. And I'll share you the link so you can share it with the audience. But there are individuals who are now making more money than they ever have in their lives or ever in their year playing this game. And this game, I heard stats today, is generating tens of millions of dollars on a monthly basis. And it's brand new.
What's the name of the company?
Axie, AXIE Infinity. Axie Infinity. I'll share the link with you.
Yeah, now that's really interesting, Kyle. And what's
the legalities?
Who's the group that put that together? Who owns that company? Do you know?
Oh my goodness, I should look, but I think Axie Infinity, I think they may have a co-parent, but I'll verify that.
Are they out of Japan? Do you know?
No, I think they're actually out of. I will fact check that because I think they're out of the.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
You know, it's amazing how things are moving forward, Kyle. Honestly, it's incredible. When I see it, you know, I just my next paper, my next article in Forbes is about replicating humans, and so I looked at the replica company and several of the companies. I mean, literally, really going down through your email, listening to your voice, and creating your intelligent, guardian angel. You know, it's like this is your ultimate intelligent assistant. One that has emotion, somebody that knows who you are, somebody cares, and by the way, has access to all the information in the world.
And that is a part of our future digital life, and in some cases, current digital life. If you and I have spoken about right now, you know, our identity may be just this. It's us, our faces. It's our identity and how we represent ourselves online. Right now, what we're starting to see is the introduction of avatars. And in some cases, it's 2D, just a picture. We're moving very quickly into a 3D and then a full, maybe even hologramic interaction where we will have multiple identities and avatar-based identities that are empowered by those smart assistants and ourselves and these tokenized economies that we're creating of ourselves and everything else we do. And this sounds very futuristic. I'm sure some of the audience is thinking, but this is true to form of what's happening. You look at a company like Genies, who's put together 3D avatars right now, where they are helping to blend. They're working with the Flow blockchain and Dapper Labs to blend the worlds of avatars. You and I have spoken about others where I forgot the exact name, but there's a fully AI digitally rendered avatar that was created. It was a 3D concept that turned into a avatar that turned into kind of a fully interactive individual, if you will, a digital individual. And that is out there as well. So we're seeing this transition into a digitally native life. And with that, we'll have avatars, we'll have digital assistants that will empower those. And we'll get into this future metaverses that we're starting to see a little bit emerge as well, and living into digital worlds between here and there and everything.
My partner, David Yang, has this robotic dog, but he's now putting the intelligence of Morpheus in the dog. So now imagine the dog speaks like a human-like speech, but it's walking on 4 legs around your house. It's just incredible how things are changing. Kyle, I want to, we were a little bit over today.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, don't be sorry at all. I love it. I want to get you back on the show to continue the conversation. I just love it. You're an incredible bevy of incredible knowledge and your spirit and enthusiasm and, around multiple topics. It's just phenomenal. So I want to thank you for joining my show today. And I want to thank my audience for joining. Kyle, what's the best way for people to be able to reach you?
Yeah, but before I say a big shout out to you, Gary. What you have done and the conversations and everything that we've had over the last year and a half has just been outstanding. Half of what's in my head and filled with these ideas has come from you. So just a huge shout out and thank you to you and everything you've taught me about artificial intelligence, quantum, and everything in between. It's been outstanding. I'm looking forward to much more. To the audience, you can find me everywhere online at Kyle Ellicott. Twitter and LinkedIn are my 2 best places. May take me a minute to get back to you, but definitely reach out. Would love to hear if you're building anything in these spaces or otherwise as well. And again, thank you.
Yeah, Kyle's a great guy. Reach out to him. He can answer a lot of questions. He serves on advisory boards. He's a good guy with a bevy of knowledge. My name's Gary Fowler. I want to thank you very much for joining GSD Presents Silicon Valley AI and Tech. I want you to be safe, stay healthy, and stay happy. And I'll tune in again next week to the next edition of our show. Take care and have a nice weekend, everybody. Thanks, Kyle. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.